There is a version of you that the world has never seen, not because you are incapable of becoming that person, but because you have been trained, slowly, politely, almost invisibly, to shrink, to soften your opinions, to dull your ambition, to apologize for your intensity. You were taught that being agreeable is safer than being formidable, that being liked is better than being respected, that morality must always look gentle, even when the world itself is not. And somewhere in the silence of history, a man named Niccolo Machiavelli watches this version of you and shakes his head. He would not whisper comfort. He would not pat your back and tell you to wait your turn. He would lean in close and say something that unsettles you, something sharp enough to cut through illusion. Power is not given to the well-meaning. It is taken by the disciplined, and that is where your transformation begins. Imagine standing alone in a cold stone corridor in Renaissance Florence. The air smells of parchment and candle smoke. Outside, alliances shift like sand. Friends betray friends. Rulers rise and fall in a single season. Machiavelli lived in that world, not in theory, but in blood and consequence. He watched leaders destroyed not because they lacked kindness, but because they lacked strength. He observed that good intentions did not protect kingdoms. Clarity did. Strategy did. The willingness to act decisively did. And so he wrote not for dreamers, but for survivors. If Machiavelli were alive today, he would not be impressed by your excuses. He would not sympathize with your fear of judgment. He would ask you one simple question. Do you want to be safe, or do you want to be powerful? Because the two are rarely the same. To be powerful does not mean to be cruel for pleasure. It does not mean chaos or blind aggression. That is the misunderstanding of weak minds who confuse ruthlessness with recklessness. No, Machiavelli's version of power is colder, quieter, far more disciplined. It is the ability to control yourself so completely that your emotions never control your decisions. It is the ability to see people clearly, not as you wish them to be, but as they are. It is the courage to act when others hesitate. This is where Stoicism becomes your foundation. Before you can command anything outside yourself, you must command what is within. Your anger, your ego, your craving for validation, your fear of rejection. These are the chains that keep you small. The modern world tells you to express every emotion instantly, to react, to respond, to defend yourself online and offline. But Machiavelli would tell you something uncomfortable. The person who reacts is already being controlled. Power begins with stillness. Picture a battlefield, not of swords, but of conversations, negotiations, opportunities. Someone insults you publicly. Someone underestimates you. Someone tries to provoke you into an emotional mistake. Most people respond immediately. They defend. They explain. They argue. They try to win the moment. But the Stoic mind does something different. It watches. It listens. It absorbs. When you do not react, you create uncertainty. When you remain calm, you force others to reveal more of themselves. Silence is not weakness. Silence is data collection. It is strategic patience. It is understanding that timing is often more important than volume. Machiavelli knew that perception shapes reality. If people cannot read you, they cannot predict you. And if they cannot predict you, they cannot control you. But here is where the lesson sharpens. Stoic in mind does not mean passive in action. This is where most people fail. They master composure, but never take decisive steps. They become emotionally controlled, yet strategically paralyzed. They pride themselves on being calm, but they avoid confrontation. They convince themselves that patience is wisdom, when in truth it is fear wearing a sophisticated mask. Machiavelli would not tolerate that confusion. Once you see clearly, you must act clearly. When a decision must be made, make it without apology. When a boundary must be enforced, enforce it without trembling. When an opportunity appears, Take it before doubt corrodes it. Power respects momentum. The world rarely rewards hesitation. There is a moment in every ambitious life where you realize something uncomfortable. Not everyone wants you to rise. Some people prefer you smaller, manageable, predictable. Your growth unsettles them because it forces them to confront their own stagnation. And in that moment, you face a choice. Do you soften yourself to maintain harmony? Or do you accept that strength creates friction? Machiavelli would say that a ruler who tries to please everyone pleases no one, and eventually loses everything. To be ruthless in action is not to betray your values. It is to refuse to betray your potential. Think about the times you stayed silent when you should have spoken. The times you tolerated disrespect because you feared conflict. The times you delayed a bold move because you wanted approval. Each of those moments felt small at the time, but they accumulate. They form a pattern, a habit of retreat, and habits define destiny. The ruthless individual is not constantly aggressive. In fact, they are often calm, even warm. But when a line is crossed, the response is swift and unmistakable. There is no emotional explosion, no drama, just consequence. And once people understand that your boundaries are real, they stop testing them. Power is often quieter than weakness. Weakness shouts, argues, tries to convince. Power acts and moves on. Machiavelli observed that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. That statement has been misunderstood for centuries. It does not mean you should inspire terror. It means that respect rooted in consequence is more stable than affection rooted in convenience. People love you when it benefits them. They respect you when they know crossing you carries a cost. But here is the deeper layer. The first person who must respect you is yourself. If you continually betray your own standards, no external authority will save you. Self-respect is built in private moments, when you follow through on what you promised yourself, when you wake up early despite fatigue, when you train your body even when comfort calls, when you finish the work others abandon. Discipline is the architecture of power, and discipline is rarely glamorous. It is repetition, it is structure, it is the willingness to endure boredom while building mastery. Machiavelli admired those who understood preparation. Fortune, he wrote, favors the bold, but boldness without preparation collapses. You must sharpen your skills long before the opportunity arrives, because when the door opens, hesitation will close it again. There is also a darker truth you must confront. Not everyone deserves transparency. Not every strategy should be revealed. The modern obsession with oversharing has weakened many ambitious people. They announce plans before they are ready. They reveal intentions before they are secure. And when resistance appears, they crumble under external pressure. Machiavelli would advise discretion. Move quietly. Let results announce you. When people underestimate you, let them. Underestimation is camouflage. It buys you time. It allows you to observe without threat. The powerful do not constantly advertise their strength. They cultivate it in silence. But understand this clearly. Power without moral direction becomes tyranny. Stoicism without empathy becomes cold isolation. Ruthlessness without wisdom becomes self-destruction. The balance is delicate. The mind must remain composed, but the heart must still remember why it acts. Why do you want power? Is it revenge? Is it insecurity? Is it the need to dominate? Or is it freedom? The freedom to choose your path. The freedom to protect what matters. The freedom to build without begging permission. If your foundation is unstable, your power will corrupt you. But if your foundation is self-mastery, your power will liberate you. There is a moment when you begin to notice the shift. You no longer react instantly to criticism. You pause. You evaluate. You decide if it is useful or irrelevant. You stop chasing validation from those who do not share your vision. You become selective with your energy, and strangely, people begin to treat you differently. Not because you demanded it, but because your presence changed. You speak less, but with more weight. You smile, but without submission. You act, and do not look back for applause. This is the transformation Machiavelli would demand of you. Not cruelty, not paranoia, but clarity sharpened into action. The world is not a fairy tale. It rewards leverage, competence, and resolve. You can remain idealistic and powerless, or you can become realistic and influential. The choice is uncomfortable. Growth always is. Imagine 5 years from now. 2 versions of you stand side by side. One chose comfort, avoided difficult conversations, stayed agreeable, took minimal risks. That version is safe, perhaps even liked, but quietly resentful, aware of unrealized potential. The other version chose discipline, endured misunderstanding, made unpopular decisions when necessary, built skill relentlessly. That version is not universally loved, but it commands respect. It moves with intention. It shapes its environment instead of being shaped by it. Which future feels heavier? Machiavelli does not care about your comfort. He cares about your capacity. And deep down, you already know that you are capable of more than you have allowed yourself to become. The Stoic mind is your shield. The ruthless action is your sword. But remember, a sword is only dangerous in untrained hands. Train relentlessly. Refine your judgment. Study human nature. Not to manipulate blindly, but to understand clearly. When you understand motives, you anticipate behavior. When you anticipate behavior, you position yourself strategically. This is not about becoming heartless. It is about becoming unshakable. There will be moments when you doubt yourself, moments when acting decisively feels isolating, moments when others call you cold simply because you refused to bend. In those moments, return to stillness. Ask yourself whether your action was aligned with your long-term vision. If it was, stand firm. History does not remember the overly agreeable. It remembers the decisive. And you do not need a throne to live like a ruler. You rule your habits. You rule your time. You rule your reactions. You rule your standards. From that internal sovereignty, external influence grows naturally. Power is not loud. It is consistent. It is disciplined. It is controlled. And above all, it is earned. The world will test you. It will provoke you. It will tempt you with shortcuts and distractions. But if you cultivate a stoic mind and act with calculated boldness, you become something rare. A person who cannot be easily manipulated, easily discouraged, easily replaced. Machiavelli would look at you then, not with warmth, but with approval, because you would no longer be asking for permission to exist powerfully. You would simply be powerful.